Ladies and gentlemen, this is really amusing. CNN's ratings have dropped over 44% in the past week. Why is that? MSNBC's ratings have dropped around 20%. And Fox only saw a drop of around 4 or 5%. But why do you think CNN's ratings have dropped 44.69% for the 8 p.m. slot, 44.66% for the 9 p.m. time, 10 p.m. their ratings have dropped 44.99%, so 45%. Why is it that the trusted name in news has dropped in such a profound manner? Well, we know they've devoted their lives to just spreading any negative news story against Trump. President Trump has experienced 92% negative media coverage. They never gave him a moment of peace. There was no honeymoon. It was Trump, Russia, Facebook ads. They tarnished democracy. They ripped apart norms and traditions by never. That wasn't a peaceful transition of power, by the way, in 2016. You don't get your intelligence agencies to investigate an incoming candidate based on hunches or suspicion without any evidence at all. All the claims that CNN made pertaining to Trump and Russia were baseless because the ODNI report that James Clapper compiled was completely baseless. In fact, he told Chuck Todd, we don't have any direct evidence. In what, March of 2017? Then there was a Steele dossier that they purchased. And from Clinton, or Clinton purchased a Steele dossier with help from Russian sources. They're the ones who worked with Russia. But see, again, you can look. The 10, beyond BuzzFeed, the 10 worst, most embarrassing U.S. media failures on the Trump-Russia story, Glenn Greenwald. And this is The Intercept, when he was at The Intercept. The list was extremely difficult to compile, in part because news outlets, particularly CNN and MSNBC, often delete from the internet the video segments of their most embarrassing moments. Number 7, Trump aide Anthony Scaramucci is involved in a Russian hedge fund under Senate investigation. That was false. On June 22nd, CNN reported that Trump aide Anthony Scaramucci was involved with the Russian direct investment fund under Senate investigation. He was not. CNN retracted the story and forced the 3 reporters who published it to leave the network. Okay, there's like a litany of stories from CNN and MSNBC and even the Washington Post and New York Times and other publications. Journalism is no longer alive in this country. There's a litany of stories that had to be retracted. They were false. But what happens is, and this is how Nicholas Sandmann was able to defeat the Washington Post. What happens is they flood the airwaves with a bogus, absurd story, and then they issue a tiny retraction at the bottom of the next publication or the next news segment. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. We're back on our way to 200,000 subs. Once I get to 200,000, I'll be able to do a lot of things. I'm working on something very special. You will love it. But ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe. Tell your friends about this channel. You can go to hagoodman.com and read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post. You can see my debates there. To my new Patreons, thank you so very, very much. My Patreon link is on hagoodman.com. It's also below in the pinned and description comment section. But ladies and gentlemen, what they do is, and you see this, it's not just CNN. They've devoted their lives to, it's actually this gigantic monstrosity, this public relations monstrosity. So they published a false news story on Anthony Scaramucci. Then Anthony Scaramucci just turned on Trump, which is interesting because he saw what media was capable of. Maybe that's why he turned on Trump, to get favorable news coverage. Who knows? But they went after him with a false news story. And then this is the third most embarrassing. CNN explicitly lied about Lanny Davis being its source for a story whose substance was also false. So they lied about a source for a story that was false. that wasn't even true. So Cohen would testify that Trump knew in advance about the Trump Tower meeting. I mean, and people believe this. Do you understand? There was no Trump Russia. It was perpetuated by media. And then they have the audacity to say, Trump lies so much. He doesn't lie about, what he does is, Trump is hyperbolic, like most presidents, but in a brash manner. So the fact-checking organizations, what they'll do with Trump, and they'll say, well, we rate this mostly misleading. We rate. Fact-checking is not about how the Washington Post or Snopes or anyone else rates something. If I were to tell you that in 1955 the Yankees won the World Series, that is false. You could fact-check that. It's not that you rate that false. It is categorically false. The Brooklyn Dodgers won the World Series in 1955, and that's it. You leave it at that. You don't split hairs and look up, they get into these semantic debates or this, it's like a philosophy of language course. Well, Trump said this, and, the meaning of that word is not really. So at the end of the day, it was misleading. And then they go from false statements to misleading statements. Or they'll say, he miscategorized. Or he misinterpreted. Or this was misleading. These are all subjective ways of describing a disagreement. What they're trying to say is, we're going to pretend that this rebuttal in an ongoing dispute or argument or discussion or conversation is a fact check. So that's what they've done. But you can look at, so this is CNN explicitly lied about Lanny Davis being its source for a story whose substance, there's no wonder why you have the Biden administration now, and they're all in the tank. So what do they have to report on? They're not going to report on Biden. Okay, that's why you watch this channel. That's why you watch other channels. Because I'm independent. I don't get $20 million in venture capital funding for yelling Medicare for all and then, pretending that you can't implement it. Like some people do. Okay? Bernie Sanders unendorsed a TYT host. Why do you think that was? Well, because of the very horrible things that person wrote years back. But that's part of this racket and scam. They all make Bernie Sanders, TYT, all of them. They make a great deal of money yelling Medicare for all and yelling Green New Deal legislation and screaming and shouting universal basic income and then when it comes down to it, they don't. It's part of the same racket. They push Trump Russia, and then when they have the presidency, the House, and the Senate, and Jimmy Dore, who's a hero on the left, says, I'm not on the left. I'm just looking from the vantage point of someone who supports President Trump. I used to be the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post. That was long before a lot of people try to make a name for themselves, by supporting Bernie Sanders. But the $20 million venture capital people I'm talking about. But I was the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post. Okay, so now I support President Trump because I want an end to regime. I want an end to regime changes, an end to military interventions. That is far more of. It's a much bigger issue than the issue of climate change. People might say, well, it's the whole planet. Yeah, but you can't. The United States of America can't reverse climate change on its own or address the issue on its own. You need the entire planet on the same page, which I'm not saying it's not an important issue. It is. But our foreign policy, we decide. We can reverse our failed foreign policy endeavors. We can reverse course. We can bring Americans home, which is what I want. Inadvertently, our foreign policy decisions have ruined the lives, unfortunately, of hundreds of thousands around the world. It's not, it just like when they say, well, President Obama had a well-meaning intervention in Libya. He turned the country into a failed state. Okay, the people there are more worried about what America did 10 years ago or feeling the consequences than they are of climate change. Doesn't mean that climate change isn't an important issue. We should address it. What I'm saying is foreign policy, far more important. Far more important. Especially you have the issue of potential nuclear confrontation with Russia. If you have too many armies in one location, that's a powder keg. But we can go on further. The point, what I'm trying to say is, the left is a gigantic racket. It's a media-driven scam. Whether it's Medicare for all and oopsie, we can't do it now, even though, Jimmy Dore's really mean and he's forcing us to actually, abide by our promises. Oh my God. What he's doing is fantastic. He's a hero for what he's doing. But the whole thing is a racket and a scam. It's like the following. If you go ahead, promise Medicare for all, say that Trump worked with Russia, pump the airways full of lies and deceit, and then paint Trump as this lying like monster, then you've created millions upon millions of hysterical, fanatical people. Now they've calmed down because they got what they wanted. Now President Trump fed the hysteria with his tweets. What Twitter did was the best thing. Now you can just focus on Trump's accomplishments. Now his accomplishments speak for themselves, which is why he's gotten $200 million for his political action committee. He's revamping he's completely transformed the Republican Party. Liz Cheney is being censored in Wyoming now. Okay, anyone who goes up against Trump, that is essentially the worst thing you could do politically. So, but I'm trying to say here, CNN explicitly lied about Lanny Davis being a source. Okay, so then there's another one. There's yet another. Donald Trump Jr. was offered advance access to the WikiLeaks email archive. That was false. Of course, CNN published that one. But see, again, it was the morning of December 9, 2017, launched one of the most humiliating spectacles in the history of U.S. media with a tone so grave and bombastic that it is impossible to overstate. CNN went on the air and announced the major exclusive. Donald Trump Jr. was offered by email advanced access to the trove of DNC. See, again, that was not true at all. It was false. So the fact-checking organizations never go after CNN, or the Washington Post never does a running tally of CNN's statements and hyperbole. The suspicion, hyperbole, propaganda, it's all accepted if it's going one way and not another way. If it's going towards Trump, no problem. How many news stories does it take? And their tagline is the trusted name in news. This is why you have people like Joe Rogan, Tim Pool, Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder. Crowder does more than CNN routinely. I mean, all of the people I mentioned do more than CNN in terms of views on a daily basis. Easily on a weekly basis. I know that. But you have YouTubers. I mean, I'm a small channel, but my channel is growing. But you have YouTubers that are getting far more views than CNN and MSNBC. And the reason is, I'm not beholden to anybody. That's like when I say subscribe to this channel if you want to support my voice on Patreon. It's true. Like, I'm a one-man show. I don't one-man band. I'm not affiliated with a network. I don't have venture capital funding like some people. And I'm free generally to speak about what I want to speak about. Sometimes I impose restrictions on how I describe a topic or, just because of the algorithm. But I don't have a You can tell that I'm a genuine human being because I used to be the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet. Now I support President Trump. To the left, that means that a person is disloyal and is a bad human being. To the rest of the humanity, that means, look, I'm not beholden to a political party. My values, there's a direct line really between Bernie 2016 and Trump and President Trump. I am going to always, H.A. Goodman will always vote against the Lincoln Project. If the Lincoln Project is supporting a candidate, I will vote for the opposite candidate. Bernie Sanders did not have Lincoln Project support. President Trump does not have Lincoln Project support. That is the common theme. Very difficult for the left to understand that because they live their lives on Twitter, which is what I was going to get to. Twitter is part of this. Okay, you have to understand. When I told everyone 2 years ago to get off Twitter, I don't have a Twitter account for 2 years. I haven't had a Twitter account for 2 years. Okay? I haven't had a Facebook account for 2 years. These are cyber realities where you can, when you have a Democratic politician, so here's an example. AOC is being forced to explain why she doesn't support Medicare for all at this point, because she doesn't. I mean, she doesn't. This is a fact. AOC does not support Medicare for all. And Jimmy Dore's basically, showed the world the reality, the truth of what's going on. If she supported Medicare for all, she would be the first person out there. She has a platform, millions upon millions of people. Hey, force this vote or have this vote on the House, for a bill. Let's see how much, if it's even feasible. If it's not feasible, we try again. But they don't even want to even try. So that, because the whole thing's a racket. But AOC is experiencing a great deal of heat and pressure from the left. So what does she do? On Twitter, she accuses Ted Cruz of, fomenting something horrible against her. Okay. It's a classic, not only deflection, it's a political stunt that you're only able to accomplish that on Twitter. Nobody would take that seriously, like in a press release or a press conference or whatever, because then you'd have to ask questions. Or on Twitter, it's this world, this universe, this alternate reality that you can actually deflect, and you can create an image of your political opponent that doesn't exist. Like I said, President Trump should not have used Twitter in the manner that he did. I love President Trump. He should not have insulted LeBron James. He should not have insulted NFL athletes. He didn't have to go back and forth with individual people. It's because it interferes with governing, and the message it sends is not one that any president wants. It wasn't a good thing. President Trump did better among African American and black voters, better among Latino voters, better among Asian Americans and Latino and Hispanic Americans. Okay? That's because his policies helped these communities. We had record low black and Latino unemployment in this country. But it didn't serve it didn't serve Trump or his movement or anyone to just insult individuals, because it didn't create a national discourse or dialogue. If you oppose the national anthem protest, as president, looking back, try to create that dialogue and discourse, saying, okay, well, here's my vantage point. Let's discuss, let's have a philosophical debate. What President Trump did is fed into the outrage machine. And that was the past couple of months too. We need to discuss and have a debate and a national discourse. The left doesn't want that. I understand this. The rebuttal I've seen in the comments from my amazing subs is that, well, the left doesn't want that. Yeah, I know. Don't give them what they want. If they don't want a discussion, try to force one to happen. The worst thing that could ever happen in the history of the left in this country is for AOC and Ben Shapiro to debate Medicare for all. The worst thing that could ever happen. How do you think that would turn out? Or AOC to really debate anything with anyone. But you need to force that discussion. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe. right now to this channel. I'll be back in a couple of hours. Thank you.